In the summer of 2013, a 66-year-old woman set out on the Appalachian Trail, one of the most legendary hiking paths in America. She was full of life, full of dreams, and determined to complete a journey that few dare to finish. But somewhere in the vast wilderness, Geri Largay vanished without a trace. For 26 long months, no one knew what had happened to her, until the day a haunting discovery was finally made. Before we begin this story, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support helps us bring you more true crime mysteries and forgotten disappearances. The woman who dared to walk alone. Geri Inchworm Largay was not the kind of person you would expect to become the subject of a national mystery. She was a retired nurse, a wife, a mother, and a grandmother. At 66 years old, Geri was kind-hearted, well-liked, and full of a restless curiosity that often led her outdoors. She wasn't reckless, nor was she inexperienced. She was simply someone who believed in pushing her limits, living life fully, and finding meaning in the great wilderness. The Appalachian Trail, stretching more than 2,000 miles across 14 states, has always been a symbol of adventure, testing even the most seasoned hikers. For many, it is a once-in-a-lifetime challenge, a pilgrimage through some of the most rugged and breathtaking terrain in America. For Geri, it was the dream of a lifetime, and she was determined to conquer it. Her trail name was Inchworm. In the world of long-distance hiking, many trekkers adopt trail names, often nicknames given by fellow hikers. Hers reflected both her steady pace and her patient, resilient nature. She was not the fastest hiker, but she was persistent. Step by step, she moved forward, covering miles each day in quiet determination. That summer, Geri was hiking with a friend. Together, they navigated forests, climbed ridges, and braved the unpredictable weather of the Appalachian Mountains. But in late July of 2013, her friend had to leave the trail due to a family emergency. Geri decided to continue on alone. It wasn't unusual. Many hikers walk solo sections of the trail, but for Geri, this decision would prove fateful. On the morning of July 22, 2013, Geri sent a cheerful text message to her husband, George, who was helping to support her trek by meeting her at checkpoints. She told him where she planned to be, and everything seemed normal. But that evening, when she failed to show up at their arranged meeting spot, alarm bells began to ring. At first, George thought perhaps there was a delay, a minor setback. Cell service along the Appalachian Trail is notoriously unreliable, and hikers often lose contact for hours, sometimes days. But as night fell and Geri still hadn't arrived, the sense of dread grew heavier. By the following morning, Geri was officially reported missing. What began as a missing hiker case quickly escalated into one of the largest search and rescue operations in Maine's history. Dozens of search teams were deployed: game wardens, state police, forest rangers, volunteers, K-9 units, and even aircraft scouring the skies. They combed miles of dense forest, rivers, and rugged mountainsides. But despite the massive effort, there was no sign of Geri. It was as if she had simply vanished into the wilderness. Days turned into weeks. The search expanded, but every lead ended in disappointment. Searchers followed possible tracks, analyzed potential campsite remnants, and checked shelters along the trail, but nothing matched Geri. Her absence weighed heavily on the Appalachian Trail community, and hikers spoke of her disappearance in hushed, uneasy tones. The mystery grew darker with each passing day. How could an experienced hiker, with years of outdoor knowledge, disappear without a single trace? By the end of the summer, hope was fading. After months of searching, officials scaled back the operation. Geri's family was heartbroken, clinging to the belief that somehow, somewhere, she was still alive. But deep down, many feared the worst. Still, the trail holds its secrets tightly, and for more than 2 years, Geri Largay's fate remained one of the most perplexing mysteries ever to haunt the Appalachian Trail. The disappearance. The morning of July 22, 2013 dawned warm and hazy along the Appalachian Trail in western Maine. For most hikers, it was another day of steady walking, trading stories with strangers, and soaking in the beauty of the forest. For Geri Largay, It would be the last day anyone would ever see her alive. By this point in her journey, Jerry had already covered nearly 900 miles of the trail. She was moving slower than many younger hikers, but she carried with her an iron will and an infectious optimism. Fellow hikers remembered her for her warmth. She would stop to chat, share snacks, and even offer encouragement to others who were struggling. Jerry was not just another face on the trail. She was someone people remembered. That morning, Jerry sent a cheerful text to her husband, George, who was shadowing her hike by car, meeting her at designated spots to resupply. Her last message read simply, "In South Arm Road, in at 11 o'clock, don't wait, I'll call when I'm there." But the message never went through. The rugged, forested mountains of western Maine are notorious for having poor cell service. Like so many hikers, Jerry depended on those rare pockets of reception to stay in touch. That morning, though, she walked into a dead zone, and from there, her path grew darker and darker. At some point during the day, Jerry became disoriented. Exactly when or how is still unclear. Some believe she left the trail to relieve herself in the woods and simply couldn't find her way back. Others think she may have taken a wrong turn at an unmarked junction. What is certain is this: Jerry vanished into the forest, less than a mile from the trail, and never found her way out again. When she failed to meet George at their agreed rendezvous, alarm bells began to ring. At first, there was hope. Perhaps she had simply been delayed, or perhaps she had made camp earlier than expected. But when night fell and Jerry still hadn't appeared, the search began. The Maine Warden Service, along with volunteers, local police, and the Appalachian Mountain Club, mobilized an enormous rescue effort. Helicopters swept over the dense forest canopy, searching for any trace of a tent, a campfire, or even the glint of reflective gear. Search dogs were deployed, scouring the rugged terrain for Jerry's scent. Teams of trained searchers combed the woods on foot, fanning out in careful grids to cover as much ground as possible. But Jerry seemed to have vanished into thin air. Day after day, the search continued. For those who loved her, the waiting was unbearable. Her husband George drove from one command post to another, desperate for updates. Friends and family clung to hope that she would be found alive, huddled in a tent, waiting to be rescued. After all, Jerry was experienced, resourceful, and mentally strong. If anyone could survive in the wild, surely she could. But the days stretched into weeks, and the weeks into months. Each unsuccessful sweep deepened the heartbreak. It became one of the most extensive search operations in Maine history. Nearly 200 people took part, covering more than 23 square miles of forest. Yet no trace of Jerry was ever found. Not a piece of clothing, not a dropped water bottle, not even the faint outline of a campfire ring. By late summer, hope had dimmed. The official search was scaled back, though smaller volunteer teams kept looking. George never gave up, checking in with authorities, organizing private searches, and praying for a miracle. What made Jerry's disappearance especially haunting was how close she had been to safety. Later, it would be revealed that she was less than 2 miles from the trail, and even closer to logging roads that might have led her back to civilization. Yet the dense underbrush, thick evergreens, and disorienting terrain of Maine's forest swallowed her whole. For hikers on the Appalachian Trail, her disappearance became a chilling reminder of the wilderness's power. The trail was often thought of as a place of freedom, community, and beauty, but Jerry's vanishing cast a shadow over it, a stark warning of how quickly nature could turn dangerous. By the fall of 2013, as snow began to creep into the Maine woods, the search officially ended. Jerry was declared missing without a trace. For 26 long months, her family lived in limbo, unable to bury her, unable to truly grieve. And for the Appalachian Trail community, the question lingered like an open wound. How could a woman simply vanish in broad daylight, with dozens of hikers passing by each day, and leave no trace behind? The mystery of Jerry Largay's disappearance had only just begun. The search efforts. The disappearance of Jerry Largay triggered one of the most exhaustive search operations in the history of Maine. From the moment she failed to appear at her rendezvous point with her husband, authorities knew time was critical. Every hour mattered. The Appalachian Trail is beautiful but unforgiving. Summers are humid and buggy. Nights are damp and cold, and sudden storms can sweep through the mountains without warning. If Jerry was lost but alive, she needed to be found quickly. On July 24, 2013, 2 days after she was last seen, the Maine Warden Service took command of the search. They had handled countless missing person cases in the wilderness, but this one felt different. Jerry was 66 years old, not a reckless teenager or an unprepared camper. She was experienced, careful, and disciplined. People assumed she must have simply strayed a short distance from the trail and would be discovered within days. But as search teams fanned out, reality proved far more complicated. Helicopters circled overhead, their blades chopping through the still summer air as spotters scanned the sea of trees below. From above, the forest looked endless, rolling green hills without landmarks, where a single person could vanish completely. Search dogs were deployed, noses pressed to the ground, weaving through ferns and moss, pulling handlers through thick underbrush. Volunteers walked shoulder to shoulder, calling out Jerry's name, hoping for the faintest reply. Despite the intensity of the effort, they found nothing. By the end of the first week, the search had grown to include over 100 people. The Maine Warden Service coordinated with local police, the Appalachian Mountain Club, and volunteers who drove for hours just to lend a hand. Families along the trail brought food and water to searchers. Strangers who had never met Jerry felt compelled to help. It was as if the entire hiking community was holding its breath, united in hope that she would be found alive. But the Appalachian wilderness is merciless. The thick canopy swallowed sound. Searchers would later recall that even shouting Jerry's name only carried a few hundred feet before it was muffled by the trees. Visibility was equally poor. Walk 50 feet off the trail, and you could disappear from sight completely. The longer Jerry remained missing, the more urgent the operation became. Experts calculated how long she might survive with limited food and water. She had her tent, her sleeping bag, and a small supply of rations. But even with those resources, survival for weeks in that environment was unlikely. As days turned into weeks, searchers began to shift from optimism to dread. If Jerry was alive, she would have signaled for help, built a fire, or left some kind of trace, but no such signs appeared. Still, her husband George refused to give up hope. He spoke often to reporters, describing his wife's resilience and determination. He believed she was still out there, waiting for someone to stumble across her campsite. His faith in her kept volunteers motivated, even as the odds dwindled. The operation soon became the second largest search in Maine history, surpassed only by the hunt for a missing aircraft years earlier. More than 200 people were eventually involved, covering 23 square miles of rugged wilderness. Yet despite the vast resources and manpower, not a single clue emerged. No clothing, no gear, not even a footprint. Frustration mounted. Some searchers questioned how it was possible for someone to vanish so completely, especially when she was believed to be near well-traveled sections of the trail. Others speculated that Jerry may have been injured, unable to respond, lying just out of sight of the search grids. The hardest part was the silence. Families of missing persons often described the waiting as torture, and for George, every day without news was agony. He drove between command posts, spoke with wardens, and joined private searches. His wife had vanished, and all he could do was stand by while teams scoured the woods, always coming back empty-handed. By September, 2 months after Jerry's disappearance, the official search was scaled back. The Warden Service had spent thousands of hours, flown helicopters for days on end, and sent countless volunteers into the forest. But with no evidence of where she had gone, continuing at full capacity was no longer possible. Still, the mystery gnawed at everyone involved. How could a woman vanish within walking distance of the trail, with so many eyes searching for her, and leave absolutely no trace? Volunteers refused to let the case go cold. Smaller groups of hikers and locals organized independent searches, combing sections of the forest on weekends, hoping they might stumble upon the missing hiker's camp. Some carried her photo with them, tacking missing person flyers to trailheads and shelters. The story spread across hiking forums and news outlets. becoming a cautionary tale whispered along the Appalachian Trail. Remember the woman who disappeared in Maine? For the hiking community, Jerry's case was terrifying, not just because she was lost, but because it could have been anyone. The Appalachian Trail is well-traveled and generally safe, but her disappearance highlighted how thin the line is between safety and disaster. One wrong turn, one moment of disorientation, and a person could be swallowed by the woods forever. By the time winter arrived, the official search had ended, but the wound remained open. Jerry's family was left in limbo, unable to bury her, unable to find closure, and unable to understand how she had simply vanished. It would take 26 long months before the forest finally gave up its secret. The discovery. For more than 2 years, the mystery of what had happened to Jerry Largay haunted the Appalachian Trail. Hikers whispered her name at shelters. Rescuers quietly admitted that the trail had swallowed her whole, and her family lived each day in torment, wondering whether Jerry was still out there, alive or gone forever. It wasn't until October of 2015, 26 months after she had vanished, that the truth finally began to emerge. A surveyor, working deep in a rugged section of the Redington Township forest, stumbled upon something unusual. Nestled among thick trees far from the main trail was a collapsed tent. It looked old, weather-beaten, and abandoned. Next to it lay a faded blue backpack, and inside the tent was the skeletal remains of a woman. It was Jerry. Her tent had been pitched neatly, as though she had tried to make camp in an orderly fashion. Next to her sleeping bag, investigators later found her journal, its pages miraculously preserved by the waterproof cover. That journal told a heartbreaking story, a first-hand account of her final days alive. Jerry had written that she had wandered off the trail to relieve herself and, in a moment of disorientation, lost her way. She had tried to navigate back, but the dense forest swallowed her sense of direction. With no cell service and limited supplies, she did the only thing she could. She set up camp and waited for rescue. For weeks, she survived alone. She rationed her food, conserved her energy, and clung to hope. In her journal, she left notes to her family, tender, heartbreaking words of love, written in the knowledge that she might never see them again. Rescuers who read those pages later admitted it was one of the most haunting discoveries of their careers. Jerry had survived longer than anyone imagined possible, holding on for nearly a month before she finally succumbed to starvation and exposure. But perhaps the most chilling detail was this: she had been less than 2 miles from the trail. For over 2 years, searchers had passed agonizingly close to where she lay, yet the thick forest and the rugged terrain had hidden her from view. When investigators examined the site, they pieced together how tragically close Jerry had been to being saved. At one point, she had even tried to send a text message to her husband. In some trouble, got off trail. Can you call AMC to see if a trail maintainer can help me? Somewhere north of Woods Road. The message never went through. Imagine that. A single failed text, the difference between life and death. For her family, the discovery brought both devastation and closure. They finally knew what had happened, but knowing Jerry had suffered alone, waiting for help that never came, was almost too much to bear. Her story quickly spread beyond the hiking community. It became a case study for search and rescue teams across the United States, highlighting just how difficult it can be to find someone lost in the wilderness, even with hundreds of volunteers searching. And for the thousands who hike the Appalachian Trail each year, the discovery served as a sobering reminder. Even the most experienced hikers, even those with careful plans, can be undone by a single misstep. When officials closed the case, they did so with a kind of reverence. Jerry wasn't just another lost hiker. She had become a symbol of endurance, courage, and the cruel indifference of nature. To this day, hikers who pass through the Redington Township area speak of her softly, sometimes leaving small tokens near the site where she was found. A reminder that the trail remembers, even if it does not forgive. And so, after 26 months of silence, Jerry's voice was finally heard again, not through her own words, but through the fragile pages of her journal. A story written in the wilderness, left behind for us to find. Legacy and lessons. In the end, the story of Jerry Largay is not just about a woman who lost her way in the wilderness. It is about endurance, the fragility of life, and the cruel silence of nature. It is also a reminder of how quickly ordinary adventures can spiral into extraordinary tragedies. For many who followed her case, the discovery of Jerry's remains was not the end of the story, but the beginning of deeper questions. How could an experienced hiker vanish so close to a well-traveled trail? How could search parties, with helicopters, dogs, and hundreds of volunteers, fail to find her in time? And perhaps most haunting of all, how many other stories like hers have been swallowed whole by the wilderness, never to be discovered? Jerry's journal, preserved against all odds, became her final voice. Page after page, it showed her remarkable courage in the face of despair. She had not raged against her fate, nor collapsed into panic. Instead, she faced her circumstances with dignity, rationing her food, recording her thoughts, and leaving behind words of love for her family. In those quiet lines, we see the resilience of the human spirit and the universal fear of dying alone. Search and rescue teams across the country studied her case in the years that followed. Jerry's disappearance reshaped how many organizations approach long-term searches. They learned to think differently about terrain, to widen their assumptions, and to never underestimate how close the lost might actually be. But beyond strategy, Jerry's story became something more, a lesson etched into the Appalachian Trail itself. Hikers who once treated the wilderness as a place of escape began to see it with new caution. Today, countless guides, rangers, and seasoned hikers use her story to teach preparedness, carry extra supplies, tell someone your plan, and always know that the forest is bigger than you. Her family, while devastated, also sought to keep her memory alive. They spoke of her kindness, her laughter, her passion for hiking. Jerry had not been reckless. She had simply been human, subject to the small mistakes and moments of misjudgment that all of us carry. That is what makes her story so haunting. It could happen to anyone. For older viewers, especially those who remember Jerry's case unfolding in the news, there is something deeply sobering about the way time eroded her chances. 26 months passed while her tent sat hidden in plain sight, the forest swallowing her presence like it had been waiting all along. In the end, Jerry's story is not one of failure, but of legacy. She reminds us that the wilderness is not cruel in the way humans are. It is indifferent. It offers beauty and peace, but it also demands respect. One misstep, one wrong turn, one failed text message can mean the difference between survival and tragedy. Her final words to her family, written in her journal, still echo words of love, gratitude, and hope that they would live fully even after she was gone. They are a testament to a woman who faced the unthinkable with grace. And so, when hikers pass through that stretch of the Appalachian Trail today, some pause in silence, some leave tokens or small notes tucked under rocks, not for closure, but for remembrance. Because Jerry Largay is no longer just a name in a news report. She is a part of the trail itself, a voice carried on the wind, a reminder of how thin the line is between adventure and tragedy. For us, her story lingers as a haunting question. If you found yourself lost, cut off from the world, would you face the wilderness with the same quiet strength that Jerry did? If this story moved you, if it made you think about the fragility of life and the mysteries that surround us, I invite you now, leave a comment with your thoughts. Share this video so Jerry's story is not forgotten. And don't forget to like and subscribe, because here we tell the stories that the world has nearly lost to silence.